Our journey begins. It is day 107, September 15, 2024. And today I spent around at least 7 hours thinking through and developing concepts and fleshing out ideas for the movement coordinating mechanism, essentially building out the ecosystem by which the world shifts from something that operates in a sort of survival of the fittest competitive structure to a structure of coordination. And so I've been thinking through a lot of different concepts. So I just kind of wanted to run through some of the concepts that I thought through. So in general, I reviewed the concerns that I had the last week. I transcribed all the daily videos that I did this past week. I tried to analyze them, like what are my concerns? And basically there was some concerns about the philosophical foundations and the role of coordination versus competition, and how you would stay engaged and motivated and other aspects. In general, this past week, I just felt the weight of how much work it would be, and it sort of felt impossible, like it was not going to be a good idea. But then as I was working through things today, I started thinking through the blockchain aspects, and if there would be any way to enable global self-evolving mechanism through blockchain, and then still maintain some sense of being able to keep that mechanism from evolving into a dystopic thing. And then we got into DOAs, which is essentially the coordinating mechanisms using blockchain, and sort of the corporations that use that, and thinking through how we could implement that with the overall system. And then I thought through some overall trajectory of the history of the world, and how the world was the survival of the fittest for a while, and then we had the internet, and we thought, the internet will solve our problems. And a little bit it did enable us to begin to think through some different areas to help us solve problems. But now that we're facing down the line of AI and other things, it could be abundance, it could be dystopia. Similarly to the internet, where before the internet we thought, it's going to be this thing that's going to enable great prosperity. And it did enable some prosperity, but it also enabled a lot of bad things to happen. So I really think then that there has to be something else besides the internet, besides just the regular way of doing things, or we'll end up in those situations where some new technology comes along, but we don't really use it properly. There has to be a mechanism by which we use the technology properly to accomplish the goals that we actually want to accomplish. And so that's where I've been thinking through this idea of, just seems like we need a coordinating mechanism. And it would basically involve principles from psychology, what popular religions do use to maintain their people's interest and to maintain people from doing things that are not good. And so I continued fleshing through that idea. Then I really dialed in on describing and fully detailing out what the movement coordinating mechanism would be, its psychological principles, in so many different aspects. And then I got into, basically I would be working to build the framework that would allow for this coordinating mechanism. Obviously, it would be like the internet, where the internet's kind of a framework where people can use it to accomplish good things, bad things. Like, they can use it to coordinate, but they're not really. And so there has to be something that we create that allows for people to coordinate, to achieve the good things. And I suppose it's difficult to explain, and that's why it sounds strange, because the internet, you think, well, the internet's could do that, and the internet could do that, but by itself, you can't just go on the internet and begin to change the world. And I think that's what we're missing. The mechanism that utilizes the internet to enable for this self-evolving, self-organizing system of people that can each contribute greatly, and that together can make, in their synergy, can create a state of abundance. So then I realized that this all goes back to this idea that I was fleshing out several months ago called La Vida Tapestry, which is essentially the living tapestry, which is a sort of knowledge graph of all knowledge organized in a way that is deterministic. And so I reviewed those ideas, which were pretty high level, and began to really dial in on how you would maintain the identity of every person. But basically the idea would be similar to what people are trying to do with Web 3.0. And I suppose you could say that Web 3.0 is very similar to building a coordinating mechanism that utilizes the internet but allows people to do things that are positive. But I think it would be different. It would be a little bit more holistic than that. But yeah, basically it would be a way that people could store their profile themselves, and they would have the encryption key. But then certain smart contracts could access certain parts of their profile in order to give them very, very personalized things, and really begin, so people could create things on this coordinating mechanism that could really benefit other people and enable them to do great things. Like you could create a mechanism that would, by utilizing smart contracts and the blockchain and this whole framework, could access the person's profile and write a very personalized book for that person that might be able to enable that person to accomplish great things. Or basically, I think the advent is going to be creating very personalized things for everyone, where before the internet was, let's create something that a lot of people will want to engage with. Now it's going to become, let's create something that is tailored to each individual and really enables them to become their best selves and enables for this sense of coordination. And then I was thinking through how AI would be part of that, and really thinking through that whole system and starting to think through how I would start to build that. And I sort of mapped out an overall plan of how I would go about building each of those different steps. And really thinking through the building and how data is stored and how the blockchain will work. And then I realized you basically come to this roadblock where you're like, well, I don't know how to code with this system, or I don't know how to use this or that, and I don't know how to encrypt everything properly. And you come to this roadblock where you want to be able to use the systems that thousands of people have built for you before, but there's so much baggage. A lot of times it's not really ideal. The systems are outdated. It's just that people use them because that's what they've always used. And I'd like to think about it more from a first principles standpoint. And thinking about it, well, like, why do we have to code using coding languages? Well, it's because language is so ambiguous. Well, if language wasn't so ambiguous, we could use one language that machines, robots, humans, blockchain, everyone could use, and there would be no more ambiguity in things, and it would solidify items, which might be unromantic, but at least it could be a language that would still be able to be spoken naturally, sort of like the language that like lawyers use. They use very specific language. I suppose it would be similar to that, but I don't think quite the same. And so then I started thinking through how to create a language, and that would sort of combine coding, being able to represent concepts, like emotional concepts, and being able to have a distinct word for each different variation of a word, So instead of having you would run a program or you would run a marathon, you would have a specific word in that case. Run would have a specific meaning, and it would basically either be 2 words, or you could combine the words where it's like a differentiation. But I think I'm going to try building that out, and then from there just start rethinking coding, rethinking how everything is set up currently, which does sound a little bit naive. Like, why would you try to recreate all of humanity's internet systems? But I just feel like it's going to be easier for me to build it all myself, to rethink everything from a first principles standpoint, from the ground up, for the purpose of making the world the best place possible, than to try to relearn all the old systems that people have built before me. Now, it might be that I end up just using the systems that people have built before me after realizing that it would take too long to build it myself. But I'd like to do first principles, really thinking about it simply. Like, English is composed of about 20,000 to 30,000 words that people use, which really isn't that many. So if you triple that, or quadruple, or whatever, to 200,000 words to make the whole entire language very much more precise, you could sort of create a whole new language, a sort of potentially international language that is not ambiguous, that you could use then to do anything and everything. And it could possibly, by having a language with that many terms, could enable us to a little bit evolve. And there's other concepts that about the language. You might want to make the language a certain way in order to sound a certain way or feel a certain way. Or there's so many different complicated things, and I'm not necessarily a linguist or anything. I just think that if the current language systems are too ambiguous, then let's reinvent them, and let's just make everything over again. Which you think, well, the world situations are hard enough, why are you doing that? Again, it's just, I feel like I can't compromise on anything. And if I'm gonna rebuild stuff, I need to rebuild from the very beginning. And if it takes a long time, it takes a long time. I'm here for the long run, for helping people. And it's interesting because I was also thinking through today how I want to build this coordinating mechanism. But then I was thinking through myself, I prefer right now to work by myself. I wouldn't mind working with someone, with many people that had the intentions that I do, but it's hard to find people that have the intentions that I do. And that's one of the things that I would like to create with this entire coordinating mechanism, is ways to connect with people that actually care. But in some ways it's because I would have to trust those people, and I don't want to build a world where you have to trust everyone to do things that they don't deliver on or whatever. I think if we could build a coordinating mechanism where it's a trustless system, which is the way blockchain is. It's a trustless system where you can contribute and you can make a difference. So that was sort of the overview. I repeated myself a bit and didn't really explain different things, but I spent a lot of time thinking through this coordinating mechanism, and I'm just going to try to build my way from the bottom and just keep plugging along. It is really nice to have these AI tools that can make some of this stuff a little bit easier. It takes them a couple seconds to come up with thousands of words and to answer my question pretty thoroughly. So, all right, thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow.